Hello. How's everyone doing, guys? Everyone doing well? But yeah, I mean, huge news just right off the back that we should really start our stream with, guys. Where as I would have just recently uploaded a YouTube video on it, but effectively, what it means is that we don't really have to worry about game weeks 4 and 5 anymore in terms of players missing out, especially when they're playing in red list countries. And for that reason, you should go ahead. Even right now, if you're the type of person who wants to chase a price rise tonight. Um, so basically, the news is that the Premier League has unanimously kind of agreed to do this, and simply put, fantastic news for a lot of players, because I think it basically the news tomorrow coming out on the updated red list doesn't really matter at all. So you don't have to worry about that. It's about now you have the opportunity to actually play, and so yeah, Sam says Salah stays. I think it's worth doing transfers today, right off the bat, if you want to chase a price rise or if you want to avoid a price fall. Yeah, happy to check some Twitter DMs as well, guys. So you mentioned, okay, yeah, with Barnes dropping in price most likely tonight, and the back three, Simicast, Dean, and Amarty all either risk a rotation or not performing as expected. Should I switch to Reguilon over Shaw as fixture for United seems tough? So I think so. So you raised a good point here. You mentioned that I think I would say the key issues in your squad right now are probably the Leicester players. So I know even though you have Dean, for example, who you probably want to transfer, just like I do. And actually, I will reveal to you guys who I've transferred over Dean. I've already done it today. We'll see that in a second. But yeah. So I think the priority is probably trying to address. I would probably say Dean at first, and then maybe Barnes, and then I think you can maybe look to change Amarty after that, right? Because what I'm thinking is, I think Amarty is actually still due for a price rise. Not that it would really affect you too much, but I think we still might be able to squeeze one game of Amarty, so he could still be a bench player. But I think the priority might be to move away from Dean and Barnes. And obviously, the tricky thing here is I think you probably want to go into a player like Greenwood. So what we're trying to say is we might need to cut down Dean quite a bit. Because I think is there any other kind of transfers that you're looking at? Because you're saying obviously you want to get around Lukaku around 5/6. I totally understand that and I hear you out on that. Do you think it'd be incorporating Fernandes or Salah to get rid of to get into Lukaku? I think that's what I would probably say. But in terms of the back line, I think we have multiple options. So after game week 3, you have the option to get into the Wolves defense, which I'll show you right now, just for everyone as well in chat. Let's have a look at. I wanted to talk about. So the well-known Wolves option is going to be Connor Cody at 4.5. Look at how beautiful the Wolves run is. Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle, and Aston Villa and Leeds. Obviously, those are a bit tougher games, but we're talking about if Wolves are actually a good side, which I actually think they are, then they have great potential to get clean sheets. A lot of people are also talking about Kilman, who's another centre back for Wolves right now. But I would actually alert you guys to Marcel at 4.5. He's a left wing back, which means he has much more attacking returns. We know Cody doesn't really score goals often. I think he only has one Premier League goal to his name. I think Kilman has scored in the previous season. But we're talking about potentially a consistent threat with literally zero ownership right now. He started the first 2 games for Wolves. He hasn't been substituted, and he's playing on the left wing. I think he could be really interesting. I think he could be a very interesting option for a lot of us after this week. Because obviously, I wouldn't get him, before Man United, but this is a transfer we can kind of save right now. And obviously, as you guys can see, I did get Reguilon. So goodbye, Dean. I bet Dean's going to have 9 points this week. So either way, he's not a big fan of the club, so he can leave. All right, let's have a look at some of the transfers here. You're thinking of doing Simicast to Duffy. Okay, very interesting. So that's a 4.1 to a 4.1 in terms of transfers. Livramento and Sar. Okay. Or Livramento, right? So yeah, I think Livramento for me is an interesting one. I'll talk about that with you in a second. And Sar to Fornals. Okay, that's very interesting. And then next week doing Veltman to Tanganga. Hmm. So no Ben Rama here, but obviously I completely understand why. If you started off the season with Bowen, because it looked like Bowen had such a good game week 1. Um, I don't really know if you want to go into Sar. I mean, I just think. I mean, sorry, go out of Sar. I know he has a tough game versus Tottenham, but I just don't know if Fornals is the one to capitalize. Like I think there could be a point in the season where you want to have 3 West Ham players, and I don't think your 3 would likely be Bowen, um, Fornals, and Antonio. I still think Ben Rama is the priority. So I know you have Bowen. I just wonder if it's actually more worth it to drop Bowen into Ben Rama. Do you know what I mean? And maybe even downgrading Sar so that you can get value elsewhere. Because I think Tony is also a point to concern this week for your team. And I think actually your defense is not that bad. I know the issue with Veltman is that he is injured, and that kind of makes your team look a little bit worse than it should be. But that's the way I feel right now. I feel like Tony is a bit more of an issue than Sar. I know Sar has one tough game, but I feel like there could be maybe longer term amendments that we have to make at this point in time. I do actually like when you're talking about the transfers though. I do really like Veltman to Tanganga/Marcel. So I agree with that. Deep fried. I think Salah is someone I might transfer eventually, and thought about Greenwood, which seems very good, but just harder fixtures for United and Greenwood and Ole, who knows. Yeah, I was really surprised by Ole in the weekend deciding to play Greenwood at right wing and then having Martial start up front. I thought Martial was terrible. And I don't even know why he deserved to really start up top, other than the fact that maybe Ole wanted to give him a fair go, given the fact that he was injured and he maybe deserved a chance from his previous performances in past years. But realistically, I thought the structure that they played against Leeds was fantastic, and I really wanted to see that again because I mentioned that Fernandes plays extremely well with Greenwood at centre forward. But let's hope that doesn't happen again. But I do like Greenwood. I'm not sure if you want to drop Salah though, because Salah's already kind of increased in price, and I still think the fixtures are still rather nice. Keep in mind as well, in terms of most Liverpool players who scored versus Chelsea, I think Salah has a fantastic record scoring versus Chelsea. I know historical records don't really matter too much. You have to look at context as well. But I still think this Liverpool side, especially with the way that they're able to play out the back right now with Van Dijk back and Fabinho back, they can definitely give Chelsea a good game. So I think like if you ever want to get Salah out, it would probably be now. But at the same time, I probably just wouldn't. I would try to change something else in your teams. Maybe even trying to get out of Barnes in a sense, and things like that. Um, Right, let's have a look at that guy. Chances of Amarty and Mars to start. I think Amarty actually has a higher chance to start this week because it seemed like Vestergaard is injured. I don't really know exactly what the situation is, but apparently he had some fitness issues. So with that kind of being a situation, I would probably keep Mahrez in your team, and I'd probably try to change Amarty for now. I feel like you can definitely go for Livramento or Duffy. Um, that's my personal opinion on that right now. One more message request before we go back to the chat, guys. My God, what an awesome rank, guys. 2,496. Well played, well played. Also dealing with the pain of Dean. I think... So, I mean, my question would be obviously, like, how do you generally feel about Dean, and what do you want to do with him? Because I think, obviously, we're probably going to... In terms of this squad specifically, I think the only issue with it right now is, if Dean continues to lose clean sheets, is he worth it? And then the second question is, how do we move out of Ings? And are we moving to Bamford, or are we moving to DCL? Because I think if we're talking about DCL, then we probably have to do that transfer tonight because DCL is set for a price rise. I think so. He's so close. Yeah, exactly. DCL is so close to a price rise, guys. So if you're looking at going for DCL, tonight would be the night. Unless you think you can kind of take the next week with Ings, because I do think Ings has a really good fixture versus Brentford, so that's a nice aspect of it. But yeah, I think those are the two only weaknesses in the team. And given the fact that you're a Liverpool fan, I'm pretty sure you'd be happy to move away from Dean. I just think just watching the game versus Leeds, he didn't get the chance to attack as much as often. And it seems like there are phases in the game where I think Martinez believes that Dean should be sitting back and structurally, and they shouldn't be roaming too much or kind of swapping positions. So if you're kind of reminded of, let's say, Arsenal versus Brentford, Tierney attacking so much was similar to what Dean was doing versus Southampton. And then ultimately, though, I think there's a fear as well that the gap in behind can be exploited. So just like Brentford and Chelsea exploited that kind of back left gap. I feel like some people might feel or Martinez might feel Benitez, sorry, would feel the same about Everton. So that is my slight worry about Dean, and I think for me the only interesting Everton player is going to be DCL. But I think your team is mostly set. Like most of the players, I wouldn't touch them. And with the Rafinha back after the international break, you have fantastic fixtures for Rafinha. So I think those are the kind of key things to change. Gordon Chow says, sheesh. What's up, FMW? Hi, Gordon. How are you doing? Midzi, thanks for the good news. Now that I got 2 free transfers, I want to go for DCL. Absolutely, guys. DCL and Reguilon are set for a price rise. Reece James as well. So personally, as I mentioned to you guys, I've already gone for Mr. Reguilon over here. I am full disclosure. I was a huge fan of Reguilon, and given the fact that my family are based in Madrid, I am a Real Madrid fan, and Reguilon really impressed me when he was playing for Real Madrid. And obviously, right now, I think if you're watching Tottenham and if you recently watched their game, the way they defended versus Wolves, who play a back three, was they played a back three where Tanganga would almost slot into the right centre back position, and Reguilon would be allowed to kind of push up front as a true left wing back. So that was the kind of structure that they were playing. I don't think they'll incorporate it every game because they're not going to be playing versus back threes all the time. But it does mean that obviously I think Nuno has the trust of Reguilon to attack in the system. So that's why I've gone for Reguilon for the meantime. Is -4 worth it, Sam says. My team is in a bit of a mess right now with White also injured and out for 2 weeks. I think -4 is worth it if you do have some long-term injury concerns. And obviously the fact that White plays Man City means that even if he comes in, honestly, he could be giving you somewhat negative points. So I can understand maybe going for a -4 if you don't have a third defender especially. SMG Gaming says Jimenez great option. I think Jimenez is a great option, but he's also a historical option. When you've been watching Wolves lately, one of the issues is that Wolves have been, I think, mostly carried in terms of attack by Adama Traore. I think Jimenez has definitely dropped a little bit of in quality from the past, and I think it might just take him some time to get back that kind of match fitness, get himself also emotionally ready as well to play in the top flight football. I feel like we still need to see, if he's actually getting chances and creating them for himself as well. Because right now, if you look at Wolves and their kind of expected goals, all the chances belong to Adama Traore. Franco says, I already have Duffy, so should I go Rafinha to Benrahma? I feel like, okay, Rafinha to Benrahma and Tsimikas to Livramento, or Rafinha, Benrahma, and Ings DCL. If you're so insistent on getting Benrahma, I would do that, but I want to remind you as well that Rafinha has some very, very nice fixtures after game week 4. So that's my kind of concern about going for Benrahma at this point in time. I know Benrahma has lovely fixtures right now, but the question is going to be, once Benrahma maybe faces off United, I think around that fixture is where you might think about Leeds once again, and I guess you might have fear of missing out. I do like going Ings to DCL early if you feel like you can't capture the price rise, or you want to capture the price rise rather. Stanley Bradford says, should I get Son or keep Rafinha? I feel like you might want to wait a little bit because I don't think Son or Rafinha are set for a price rise. As you can see in terms of the price rises, right? Son is at 93.9, which means that he definitely won't be, or at least I imagine, unless there's a sudden late surge tonight, I don't think Son's going to be going up in price. The only concern for me with Son was that he seemed to have been substituted due to the fact that he had a knock before the match, and I think Nuno wanted to be a little bit more cautious with him. So I think maybe just hold out for some press conferences, Stanley, and wait and see if Son is ready to play in the next game, because that is one of my main concerns, but not a huge one. I already did use the transfer indeed, Sam, yeah. What options to replace Dean? So there are plenty of options right now, and we can go through them very quickly. I think at 5.0, you're talking about Soufal, who has fantastic fixtures. Soufal is facing off Crystal Palace and Southampton, so 2 very lovely games. Obviously, we did mention time and time again that West Ham have struggled with the clean sheets, but these are still nice fixtures for him to attack in. Then we have Reguilon as well, who I think interests me quite a bit because I think Watford and Crystal Palace haven't offered much of an attacking intent, which is why I'd like to target those two. Then, of course, the fixtures get a bit tough. I'd say only arguably Chelsea is tough for Tottenham. I think Arsenal in this current form, I think Tottenham would be happy to play Arsenal, to be completely frank with you guys. You can also go down to Tanganga if you want to just secure the clean sheets from Tottenham. Then you can also consider maybe if you wait a week, or at least if you maybe are okay with not getting a great return in the first week. As I said, Marcel, 4.5 for Wolves, who could be a left wing back attacking option. If you want to play a bit safer, you can go Cody if you think this guy is rotation prone. At the same time, you can also go for Brentford defense at 4.5. I know Pinnock has already increased in price, but I would actually like to point out that Rico Henry, who is their left wing back, sorry, all right, terrible typing for me today, but Henry, who is a left wing back, is actually at 4.5, and for me, he has the opportunity to actually build some consistent attacking chances through crosses over the course of the season. So he's a very interesting player for me. I think there's also other options in terms of so at 4.5, obviously, maybe even going for another Spurs centre back, but I feel like that risk isn't worth it. I think you can go with Tanganga. I know people have a fear that he has yellow cards as well, but I think part of that has just been the fact that he has had to deal with Adama Traore in the past week, and then Grealish and Sterling previously. So is DCL a must is a big question I think people are asking right now, and I don't think he's a must because I think Bamford exists, and that's all I would really say on that. But I do really like DCL as an option. Martial up top made Bruno play worse, father of aesthetics. That's exactly what I said as well. I don't know if you were in the stream for that period, but I totally agree with that. What to do with Gundogan? I do think you should go with Greenwood. But if you can't afford Greenwood, then definitely go for Benrahma. I think both are good options because Benrahma has really nice points. What happens to your points when you transfer players? So Stanley, basically what happens is every week you get a free transfer, and you don't lose any points for using this free transfer. But I'll show you exactly what happens when you overuse the transfer. So let's say I have one free transfer. I can, let's say, or rather I have two, let's say I have one free transfer remaining, right? So just to show you from the start, this is what your kind of team would look like. If I was to make two transfers, right, let's say getting Lloris in and Alisson in, you can see that there's a cost to it. So basically, anytime you go over your free transfer, any hits subsequent to that would hit your team 4 points, which means that that would be you getting docked 4 points the next week, and if you go over that kind of free transfer limit. Otherwise, you get one free transfer a week, and you can only save up to 2 free transfers at any one point in time. So that means that you're somewhat forced to use your transfers on a weekly basis. But that's how things really work in terms of free transfers. Will Son increase in price today? I don't think so. DCL X Bamford X Antonio, that is definitely probably the best forward trio for sure, especially after game week 3. No Bruno still. I mean, fair enough. Last week, no Bruno was a great option. I mean, look at how bad my captaincy went with Bruno. Is it good with Lukaku and Tony strikers? I feel like Tony is definitely going to suffer in terms of attacking output. I feel like some of the other Premier League teams, the consistent mid-table teams in terms of Everton, Leeds, and West Ham have much more better attacking options. I think Antonio is huge, and I feel like you don't really want to miss out on Antonio, even though he's already risen in price. Because honestly, like if Antonio is fit, which of course is a huge prefacing point, he is, in my opinion, still better value than DCL, still better value than even Bamford, arguably, if fit. So take that with what you will. Should I take out Salah for Son this game week? I feel like it might not be worth it. I would still try to stay on track with the Son news and hoping that he's not injured. You've changed Ings to DCL for 4 points. I feel like it's not worth it for 4 points. But if you can't capture DCL after the price rise, then I can somewhat understand why you've done that. Because obviously Ings in the future is not going to do super well. What to do with Gundogan? I think I think both options are fantastic. So obviously when you go to Benrahma, you have money freed up to kind of upgrade maybe your defense or your attack. So I think you should choose based on what your financial situation is in terms of managing your budget. Because I think Greenwood is also a fantastic option. The issue is that Ole is somewhat frauding and not playing him centre forward, even though Cavani's not back. Should I do a -4 for Tony to Dennis? No, I don't think so, not at all. Don't do Tony to Dennis. Then Brownhill to Rafinha this week. Then Ings for DCL next week. I feel like there might be slightly better priority in saving the double transfer for the next week, where you get Brownhill to Rafinha and you get Ings to DCL. If you have to do Tony to Dennis now, it's a tough thing, but I think the question is whether you think Rafinha will get more than 6 points this week, right? Well, that's basically what we're trying to say. So, and whether or not, let's say, Tony would have hauled in the meantime. So I think I still think you wouldn't want to action that. In fact, you might want to just save your transfer so that you can kind of do a double transfer next week and then take the hit subsequently. I'm not exactly sure how that situation works though, because it seems like, yeah, I feel like you could probably save a double transfer for that, because I feel like Rafinha is not glued for -4 points this week, because Leeds are ultimately, playing Burnley, which is, I would say, quite a defensive game. I know Leeds have kind of torn Burnley apart in recent memory, so maybe it could be worth it. Yeah, actually, going back on that, I think that is worth it. Is Tsimikas going to play a Robertson? I can't tell you that right now, but I think it's highly likely Robertson played because he was involved in full training, even as early as last week. I don't really like Ings as a captain this week because I think Brentford are actually quite an organized defense. Hey Rio, how are you doing? I don't think I'll transfer Tsimikas out necessarily this week. I think I might transfer out Omo Bamidele first. Vuvu says, hey mate, do you reckon I get in Benrahma for Salah and Lukaku for Ings this week with a -4, or just wait until next week and not have to minus any points? I feel like you can wait for next week, because basically I don't think Lukaku's going to haul this week, and unless you really think Benrahma is going to outscore Salah, then maybe you can actually do Benrahma for Salah and save the money to go into Lukaku. But Lukaku could hit a price rise, so if that is a point of concern for you, then maybe you can do the transfer now, if budget is an issue. But I think there's no need to take a -4. You're considering selling Shaw for now and getting him back in Game Week 15. That's fair enough. Who are you planning to move Shaw into right now? I do actually see the kind of argument for moving away from Shaw. Like, personally, for me, I feel like I can definitely move Shaw into a 6.0 defender. But clearly, as you can see, I have some depth issues right now that I have to address first. Clearly, Tsimikas and Omo Bamidele are priorities for me to kind of deal with. But going back to your question, Rio, on Tsimikas, I think I might transfer him in a week where I need to get DCL in, which is probably the week after this. Son was in training today. Oh, fantastic, Mercato plays. That's great then. Okay, then I think Son makes a lot more sense. Thank you for the update, by the way, on that. Sanchez to Schmeichel. I don't think you should go Sanchez to Schmeichel. I really think it's not worth it. I think Leicester look terrible right now, and you don't want to do that. Dean to Reguilon, I agree with that. Ings to Bamford, not really. I feel like you have one nice fixture of Bamford and then Liverpool, which is a tough game. Maguire to Reece James. I do like that transfer, especially since I think you already have Shaw on your team, so that could make sense. Soufal to Walker. I don't think Soufal to Walker is a priority right now. Definitely not. And I think also when you look at Walker, he doesn't actually attack too much as a fullback for Man City. He actually holds his position quite well. He actually does the pass before the pass. So, for example, some of Gabriel Jesus' great assists last week were actually assisted by a very deep pass from Walker. So that's what I think about that situation. I do like the Reece James transfer overall, and I do like the Dean to Reguilon transfer overall. How's my team looking like? If you mean by next week, I'm fielding this team out, but I'm planning to transfer Tsimikas out, or Omo Bamidele out rather, for Livramento. I think basically is how I feel right now. What's my best ever rank? I only started playing last year, and my rank was 56,000. So last year was my first full season, because as you can tell, if you look at my history, I mean, I was top 6.2 million when I barely played in the week in the year before that. So I took a 2-year break from fantasy. I was basically not playing at this point. So this is the season where I had 2-3-6-2. This was where I was in an office league at the time. And I got fired from my job around game week 2, and I didn't touch my team for the whole season. So you can see exactly why I ended up here. And then 2018/19, I simply played for, I think, 5 weeks because my friend challenged me to a 5-week game league, and that's all I did. And then for 2019-20 and 2020 to 2011, I was watching football constantly because at the time this YouTube channel was a tactics channel. So I was just only watching Premier League football, but I wasn't really playing fantasy properly until last year. And since then, I've decided to move into fantasy content after the Euro as well. You dropped Bruno to Greenwood, so Tony to Lukaku. Fair enough. Oh, that's a very interesting but ambitious transfer. I'm not so sure about Lukaku against Liverpool. I know Lukaku looked fantastic versus Arsenal, but I do think Van Dijk is a different beast. How to get Tony out? So I think what you can do is it depends on how many strikers you have in your team. If you have 3 strikers, then I think you can quite easily move him down to a 4.5 striker and then try to. FIFA issued a statement not allowing Premier League clubs to stop players' release. Oh god, do we have to check that news, guys? That's tough. I do agree with Ahmed. I'm going to check that news in a quick second. I'm just going to quickly review chat and make sure that I get up to date. But going back to the Tony thing, I think if you have 3 strikers, Manan, then you can go to a 4.5 and then maybe upgrade your midfield. If you only have 2 strikers, I know you don't want to have a bench with 2 4.5 strikers. So what you might have to do is, I think one of the players suggested maybe going for Dennis at 5.0, who at least plays. You can do that, or you can maybe try to look to upgrade Tony to, let's say, someone like Lukaku by cutting down on your midfield, as an example. Those are options to get out of Tony, or vice versa, and trying to get to someone like Antonio if you reduce the cost of someone in your midfield. Sanan says, should I move Gundo to Ben Rama and Rafinha or hold? So Gundogan obviously has a nice game versus Arsenal, but I think right now we're not seeing him attack as much as we thought he would at the start of the season. It's clear a lot of Man City's plays are based on the wings and kind of collapsing teams through that structure, and I can see something very similar happening to Arsenal. Although I do see Gundogan being able to make a late run, I still think the more logical option is maybe to look at Greenwood / Benrahma / Rafinha. I think Benrahma obviously has the nicest fixtures, so maybe you can kind of move into Benrahma if you have faith in Benrahma. I think Rafinha is the more safe, solid option in terms of he has greater long-term fixtures, but Benrahma is a great short-term kind of attack. Prioritize Son or DCL to transfer in. So I think you might want to prioritize DCL because he's set for a price rise, and Son is not set for a price rise right now. Hold or sell Trossard. I would probably sell Trossard. I think they're simply just better midfielders at around the 6.5 range. Should you get DCL and Grealish for Son and Tony? I don't think you. That's a tough one. I know you want to get out of Tony. It could make sense. I think it could make sense. Yeah. I don't think Simicast is my team. My team is looking exactly the same as it is, Sam. I would just be getting Livramento into my team or Duffy. I haven't really decided what I'll do with that right now. So I'm just holding on to my transfer. Who would you replace Shaw for? I think you can try to push up to a Man City defender, who I think, in my opinion, when we actually look at Man City fixtures, someone like Laporte as an example. Laporte has, I think Arsenal's a good fixture right now. Leicester, they're in the worst form possible right now. I think that looks good. Southampton look great as well. Then, of course, you deal with Chelsea and Liverpool, but ultimately you're talking about a team that, does well really regardless of fixtures. And the tough thing, of course, is going to be playing away from home here. So that's a rough little point. In terms of short-term attacks that are really nice, I kind of like Soufal and Reguilon. And I think you can also go to 4.5 defenders if you can afford to have a rotation option. But I think, obviously, given that Shaw is your starter, those are the best options. You can also look at a Chelsea defender like Reece James as well, if you don't mind the Chelsea fixtures too much, and if you have faith in the Chelsea defense. Danielle, Tanganga and Shaw out, I think. Yeah, that could be very reasonable. I kind of like Barnes out, RDK. I think Barnes might be a larger priority to get out. I know Barnes is going to be playing versus Norwich, but I think there's a huge possibility that Leicester, or Norwich rather, that Leicester will probably play with a double striker formation, given the fact that playing with Barnes in this kind of 4-2-3-1 structure isn't working out very well. Should you downgrade Mahrez then upgrade Tony to Antonio? I think it could make sense. Who would you be downgrading Mahrez to, though? Would you be downgrading Mahrez to someone a lot like Greenwood, maybe? I think Greenwood's a nice kind of transfer. Should I get DCL and Grealish for Son and Tony? I think it makes sense, but are you going to take a -4 for that? Amarty, Bissouma, or Tsimikas first on bench? I think I like Bissouma probably first on bench. If Arsenal keep their players, they can make top 6 next season. Or maybe you go Simicast, I think. That's a tough one, though, for me. I feel like Amarty won't play, and I think I'm worried that he might see garbage minutes. Like, I don't, like, maybe to let's say, defend a lead. So that's what I'm kind of worried about with Amarty, starting him, even though the fixture is actually nice. I just don't think he'll actually play that one. And then Simicast, he'll either play or not play, so you don't really have to deal with, like, you don't really have to deal with that issue. If Arsenal keep their players, they can make top 6 next season. Then at least they can have a chance in the playoffs to get immediate. I mean, I think that's a little bit hopeful. I think some of the teams in the Premier League, let's say Spurs, for example, are in a better position than Arsenal, in terms of like the actual quality of their squad. I know Harry Kane might leave, but that's the tricky thing, I think. Dean to Sufal, I think that makes sense. Hold or sell Trossard. I would probably sell Trossard for sure. Barnes against Norwich, yeah, but as I mentioned, I think he could be rotated because it seems like he didn't play very well. He was subbed off quite early versus West Ham. I know it was 10 versus 11 men, so it's tough. Can we send your team on IGDM? Yeah, you can do. Should you remove Mahrez? I think removing Mahrez is quite logical. Sorry, guys, the chat is going so fast. Thank you guys so much for the support, by the way. As you're mainly FPL content, do you think you'd change your channel name? I probably won't, Ben. I do kind of like the channel name because it kind of is a little bit different and differentiates us from some of the other channels. I don't know. Do you guys think we should add FPL to the channel name? Captain for Game Week 3, Bruno or Salah? I think neither of them, to be honest. I would probably pick Bruno out of the two once again, but I could be wrong. Dennis is already 5.1. Yep. Replacement for Trossard. I kind of like Benrahma, to be honest, if you don't have Benrahma on your team. If you already do have Benrahma, then if we go around the 6.5 range, I think Rafinha is still a 6.5 player, isn't he? Yeah, Rafinha is probably the best option, I think, at that point. Rafinha or Benrahma are easy options. Simicast to Williams, I don't really like that transfer at all, because I don't think Norwich are a good side, in my opinion. And I think they're actually more creative attackers, or at least more solid defenders in better teams. So Duffy is a clear centre-back who can get clean sheets, and Livramento is a clear right wing-back who could be playing right wing, so out-of-position threat, and has the potential to get points from that basis. Best keeper, I think at 4.5, we're still talking about Sanchez. Overall, I think it's up for debate. We're probably talking Martinez, maybe even Mendy, but like you're not going to really go there, are you? Or Ederson. Grealish to Rafinha. I do like Grealish to Rafinha. I think it does make sense if it can kind of free up some capacity for you to maybe upgrade your strikers to Lukaku eventually. Would it be worth taking a wild card now? I mean, I think if your squad is in a terrible state, then yes. If otherwise, then no. Actually, yeah, sorry, that guy. Let's have a look at the FIFA statement. I need to kind of see the news. Can somebody link me on Twitter the news regarding FIFA's response? Can't really seem to see it myself. I can't really see the response that you're talking about, that guy. Take hits to bring DCL in. I think I wouldn't take hits to bring DCL in. I know you have Tony right now, but ultimately, I don't think DCL is always that type of player who can easily score a brace. I think Brighton are pretty capable of defense. So, you know, we're talking about DCL, someone who could probably score a goal next week, but I don't think he'll score a brace. So that's what we're really talking about, you know, when it comes down to -4. Son captain for Game Week 3. I think it could be a very interesting captaincy. I think Watford seem quite breakable as a defense. So it's a good shout, to be honest. I'm personally leaning towards Antonio for now. Marty, Bissouma, or Simicast first on bench. I do like Bissouma. I think Bissouma, to be safe, is probably the best, yeah. Cody for Veltman. As I mentioned, I think Marcel could be more interesting than Cody. Could get buy with the Martin game week 3, putting Cody on bench, ready to go game week 4. Yeah, why not, Arshit? If you want to play safer, of course, I guess Cody is a bit safer than Marcel, but yeah. Who to play next game week? Shaw, Livermento, Lamarty from fixture view. I think Livermento is a nice fixture versus Newcastle. I wouldn't say Southampton is the great defense, but I think Livermento has the chance to attack, which is obviously like a fantastic thing, right? Reguilon or Sanchez or Tanganga. I kind of like Reguilon right now, and I think Sanchez could be rotated potentially, but I think Sanchez has less chances of attacking. Tanganga might have a yellow card, but has probably assist potential. With Rafinha, Prakirn, thank you so much, Prakirn. Should you bring in Greenwood? Thank you for the super chat. Should I bring in Greenwood for Salah/Son? I don't think so. No, I think the Wolves is actually quite a tough fixture, because Wolves have played, I think, rather well versus Tottenham and rather well versus Leicester. You'll see that actually their expected goals kind of conceded is very low, or expected goals allowed. And I think that could be a tough little game week for Man United, especially if they put a similar performance to what they did for Southampton. That's my genuine opinion. I do really like Greenwood overall, and I think the fixtures for Man United continue to be quite good, so that's how I feel. Reguilon's a very good pick, Juan. I agree with that. FIFA statement in Twitter DM. Thank you so much. Let's have a look at that. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting one. So, they're basically saying that they'll find the Premier League clubs, but I think the Premier League clubs will be happy to do so. It is basically why they released their statement as well. It seems, I wouldn't say it's an empty threat right now, but I think, especially given the kind of strength that the Premier League has as a league, we're probably going to play on the safe side in terms of hoping that these our players will be able to play game weeks 4 and 5. Is Livramento meant to stay in the starting squad for Southampton? I think so, because he actually displaced Kyle Walker-Peters in the setup, and we also saw him basically when Kyle Walker-Peters was introduced into last game week. Basically, what the coach did was he subbed out Walcott and he allowed Livramento to play as a right winger or a right wing back. So I think yes, there's absolutely potential for Livramento to be a starter, and what I'm trying to suggest as well is that he could be a starter at right wing. Clarity on Salah would be nice. I'm gonna bring in Son for him if he missed game week 4. I think it's best to play it safe in terms of the Premier League statement. I think let's all kind of make transfers in the hope that the Premier League statement stays true. I think what would happen in the worst case is that they would be fined, which means that this would still happen and that their players would probably still be barred. FIFA statements. How can I improve my squad? Sanchez, Foster. Guys, I'm really sorry if I've missed some chats, by the way. Someone says, I have 2 free transfers, Maris to Greenwood, Simicast to Duffy. I'll use the remaining money to change Ings to DCL next game week. Thoughts? Maris to Greenwood, that's interesting. Simicast to Duffy. I do actually think that Maris has a very good potential to score in this game week, Mercator. So, and I know Maris didn't start last week, and I know Gabriel Jesus in particular started in right wing, but I can also see a situation where Jesus plays left wing and Maris plays right wing. I just think that Arsenal right now look very poor as a defense, and I think Man City could really exploit that, in my opinion. So I might hold on to that, especially since I think Man United versus Wolves isn't. I hope and I expect that it won't be a kind of open goal scoring game. When are you planning to wildcard? I think around game week 7/8 time. Am I making another transfer? Yes, I am. I'm planning to probably bring in a second defender into the team. Thank you, Rio, as well, on the clarification in terms of the name. If you want more people to discover the channel, I think you need to add FPL to the name. Fair enough. I'll definitely think about that. Do you guys think Total Tactics FPL is nice? No FPL, Imran says. So it seems quite mixed in general. Maybe we could do a poll on that. Ronaldo to City. That's probably not going to happen. Okay, sorry. Let's go back. Barnes plus Tony equals Greenwood plus Armstrong or DCL plus Basuma/Gray. That is a pretty tricky math formula there, but Barnes plus Tony. I don't really like Armstrong at all, so that's why I'm going to say probably not. And I don't think DCL plus Basuma is nice, but I do like DCL plus Gray. Of course, the issue there is that you're doubling up on Everton, which is a tricky thing. I still think Greenwood plus another combination of players might be more interesting, or DCL plus another combination of players with a bit more kind of variety on attack. You're going to hold Sancho, and if he blanks again, change to Son. I do feel like Son has, I mean, Sancho has been unfortunate because he's been getting diminished minutes. Kevin says, actually want to thank you. I'm not doing too bad. 186 points so far. Awesome, Kevin. I'm really happy for you. Well done at the start as well. Benjamin, which player should I pick as captain? Salah, Bruno, Ings, Antonio, Calvert-Lewin. That's a tough list. I do think Antonio probably has the best fixture, honestly. So I'd probably go for Antonio. That's how I feel right now. I need to strengthen my defense. Who do I downgrade in my midfield? Salah, Jota, Greenwood, Fernandez, or Son? That's a really tough list. I think Jota's an inch, but so actually Jota could be affected, guys, because if Firmino doesn't go to red list countries, then basically we're saying that Jota will have to deal with more competition from Firmino. So that's maybe Jota could give way in that situation. Is Levent? Yeah, sorry, I'm going to scroll down. Should I get? Someone did ask, should I get Reece James? And absolutely, I think you should, because I think he's not really rotatable. I think he actually can play right centre back and right wing back, and yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that right now. I know Azpilicueta can come into the side as well and play right wing back at times, which could happen. I feel like maybe watch one. I think let's wait and see what happens when Tuchel lines up versus Liverpool, because I think that could be the most defensive Chelsea side, and that tells me whether or not he thinks Reece James could be starting every game. If we see Reece James in that game, I think there's a great reason as well, if the Man United defense continues to let us down, to actually move into Reece James from Shaw in the future. Is Leverett? Sorry, have I missed any questions? Hold Rafinha or go Benrahma? Hold Rafinha or go Benrahma? I think you can hold Rafinha, to be honest. Because I think Rafinha has great potential in the medium term, whereas Benrahma has great short-term potential, but then it might start to fall off in a bit. Rafa is playing, yes, absolutely, Rafa is playing to DCL's strength and DCL's on penalties. He's very hard to overlook, I agree. But the thing is, I feel like I have the capacity to move into DCL the next week, right? So Calvert-Lewin, yeah, the issue is he might be an 8.2. Ings obviously an 8.1 now, but I don't think Ings is going to set to be up for a price rise. So that could be a tricky little thing. But I'm kind of leaving myself enough money where I think if I bring Livramento in, I can still bring DCL with the kind of surplus money I have in my bank. So I'm not too worried about that right now. I also think Brighton's a very tough fixture as well. Like, it generally is a tough fixture for Everton. I know Everton drew versus Brighton and kind of destroyed them last season, but I feel like it will be a tough match with Brighton at home. I think it could be a low-scoring game, to be honest. Maybe 1-1, 0-0. Is Rafinha hold? I think so. I think Rafinha has improved his form from the Man United game. I think in the Man United game he looked very rusty, but he's seemingly improving, I would say. I did Benrahma for Jota as my only transfer, and I'm captaining Son. Fair enough. Those are kind of interesting things. Who would be a good replacement for Shaw? I think Reece James, as I mentioned, is quite an interesting one post the Liverpool game. If you already want to move away from Shaw now, then I think Soufal and Reguilon are interesting options. You're holding Pogba from Gameweek 1. Wow, that's amazing. And he has been delivering immensely. He is up 0.2. That's an interesting thing. I would recommend dropping Pogba, to be honest, but I guess I can't argue with that form as well. Maybe you want to just hold until the point where he seems to cool off, in a sense. Who should I captain out of Lukaku, Antonio, Salah, Son, Fernandes, Greenwood? I like Antonio there, to be honest. But Son is a good shout as well. I did Ings to Kane. What do you think? I think Kane makes sense if Kane plays. The issue, of course, is that he's only seen very limited minutes in the last 2 games. I know that was partly a fitness issue. I know that was partly kind of Nuno mentioning that he's had to deal with specific situations in terms of whatever is going behind the scenes with the club. But I think if Kane starts, then it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Kane is never going to be a bad option. He's simply a top player. Avoid the Barnes price drop. I think you want to avoid the Barnes price drop, because for me, I know he has a chance versus Norwich, or Norwich rather. But what I'm trying to say is that I really think Leicester could change formations, because they haven't been playing well at all in this kind of one striker formation. And it's not really Vardy's fault, but just simply the team hasn't been gelling in that structure. They've also lost Ayoze Perez, so I can kind of see them reverting back to like Iheanacho, Vardy as an example. Invest now for long-term targets to avoid price rise and hold many premiums. Yeah, I mean, I think a value building strategy in general is quite a nice thing. I obviously have a lot of premiums, but in a sense, I still have the flexibility, as you can see, to to move into players who are moving up in terms of price rises, because I basically got lucky, I would say, or at least did some good research and actually managed to have Benrahma and Antonio in my team. So I haven't really missed much on price rises. I have two transfers right now. Thinking the transfer for Niles in for Mahrez this game week, and then next game week swap Tony and Ings for Dennis and Lukaku. Would you be taking some hits for that, Michael? But I do think Mahrez for this game week is a bit tricky. I mean, we saw Mahrez on the bench last week. Are you so confident that he'll haul versus Arsenal? Or at least not be suffering from rotation issues? Because obviously he scored versus Norwich as a sub, but you can't guarantee that versus every defense. I would say Norwich is probably one of the worst. Norwich is one of the worst teams in the league. Should I transfer Tsimikas to Duffy now? I think yes, you can definitely do that, because I think Graham Potter was kind of very complimentary of what Duffy has brought to the table, and it seems like Duffy can definitely have a few more kind of shots at starting. And if he continues to play well, then there's no reason for him to be dropped. Duffy for Tsimikas and DCL for Tony for Game Week 3. Thoughts? I really like that. Really good transfers, in my opinion. No hits. Should I get DCL and Grealish for Son and Tony? I think you can do that if you want. I just think... I know it sounds crazy. I know Grealish was bought for 100 mil. But I still think he's actually rotation prone. By the way, just a little bit of a break here. A lot of you guys are in the chat. 106 of you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If it's your first time here, please feel free to subscribe. We do make a lot of YouTube videos and specifically detailed analysis on players. This is more of a laid-back live stream, but I'll be looking to kind of provide tactical analysis over the course of the year. And also kind of more kind of detail on the pitch insight on players and how they're performing and whether some people will be trending in specific directions. So we kind of make team selection videos every week, which is basically an assessment of how players do every 2 to 3 or like in the incoming game weeks, especially the next 2 to 3. And yeah, that's pretty much what we do as a YouTube channel right now. Also some kind of post-match analysis as well for some interesting games that I'm tactically a fan of. Mane for Salah. I don't think Mane is going anywhere. If you're talking about international fixtures. In terms of red list countries, but I think it probably makes more sense to stick with Salah if that's what you're sort of implying. Sarr plus Raya or Rafinha plus Foster GK. Forster, sorry. I think that's a tough one there, because basically I think Forster has been pretty poor. So are you rotating goalkeepers in this structure? I'm a bit confused. I think if he's just a bench keeper, then yeah, absolutely go Rafinha. Downgrade Mahrez to Benrahma. I think that does make sense. Have I missed? Okay, I'll check Twitter in a second, Benjamin. You already transfer your squad? Yes, I've made one transfer. So you can see Reguilon has... I've basically transferred him to capture a price rise on Reguilon. So if we look at the price rises very quickly, you'll see that Lukaku, James, Reguilon, it seems even a Marty and Calvert-Lewin are set for transfers. So if you guys want to capture Calvert-Lewin now and jump on the Calvert-Lewin train, you can definitely do that now. I don't know if you've answered this question already, my bad, but Tony and Brownhill to Benrahma Dennis. Tony and Brownhill to Benrahma Dennis. That could be good, because I think it still gives you that kind of bench flexibility. I do like that, to be honest, overall. Keep in mind, though, of course, Benrahma probably will have a good game week 3 and 4, and then he might cool off a bit, but I still think it makes a lot of sense. I do like that. I mean, obviously, you can see that I've had Benrahma. I agree with the creator also saying Dallas hasn't been worth it. Simply, opinion on Ings to Calvert-Lewin as he's going to rise tonight, and Brentford look good defensively. I agree with that. Thank you, G Squad, for the love. I mean, I could very well go for DCL. Rohan says, love your videos. They've been really helpful. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Rohan. Downgrade Mahrez to Benrahma. I think that's very reasonable, to be honest. Benrahma has 2 good game weeks to go, and he pretty much plays as a shadow striker at times. And also drifts to the wings. Very much the Lingard role of last season. Duffy for Tsimikas and DCL for Tony. I think I've responded to that one. So I do like Duffy for Tsimikas, and DCL for Tony makes great sense. Going to catch the United 7 8 p.m. show. All right, take care, guys. Or that guy, rather. It's probably not going to be 3 hours. I'll probably be dipping a little bit earlier this time. Salah or Lukaku? I still like Salah right now, in my opinion. I think Lukaku's going to have a tough time at Anfield. I think Salah is. I'm not saying he's going to have an easy game versus Chelsea, but I still like his chances. To score versus Chelsea. He actually has a very good record. Jamie, absolutely great news with the internationals. Simicast to Livramento. I think that's a good transfer. I'm also thinking about Simicast to Livramento personally. Are you keeping Buendia or not? I don't have Buendia. I'm not sure what you mean. I've never had Buendia in my team. Apologies about that. But if you have Buendia, I would probably suggest transferring him out. Will Veltman be available for Game Week 4? Yes, but he won't be available for Game Week 3. Do you think Veltman will play next week? If you're talking about Game Week 3, it seems like he won't. I think the coach confirmed that he'll probably be playing Game Week 4. Miko says Grealish or Greenwood. I personally like Greenwood just because the price difference. Is it worth switching from Ings and Barnes to Diesel and Benrahma before the price changes? I agree, but I mean, I think Benrahma's already changed his price though, no? So you've kind of missed the price change there. Thoughts on Son? Spurs seem quite defensive and he might not have the same output without Kane. Jackie Chan. But I do think that Kane will come back though in Game Week 3. It seems like he's ready to start, so that's what I would say about that, which I think kind of enhances Son's chances to score, to be honest. Shaw got 2 points without direct goal involvement. Absolutely agree with Joti that he's due points. I'm not really worried about Son right now. Thoughts on St. Maximin? Not interested. Adama, not interested as well. I mean, these are both players who have... Okay, St. Maximin's a bit different because obviously he's a very creative player. Very, very skilled. Adama is kind of the type of player who knows how to push the ball into directions where, defenders don't have the agility and flexibility or even the pace to keep up with him. And they both kind of create chances in different ways. But I think ultimately they're both very inefficient players. St. Maximin mostly due to the fact that he's playing with Newcastle, who are a very low-scoring kind of output team. And then Adama, I mean, simply just isn't clinical enough to be worth it. Because if you watch the Traore games and you think, he must be scoring in the first 2 games, but then you actually think back and consider his actual skill set as a player, and you probably think that, no, he probably can't do it. You have Mahrez and Greenwood. Is it worth using both transfer save 2 and getting Benrahma and Son? I think Greenwood's a fantastic pick. I feel like Mahrez as well is a good pick versus Arsenal to kind of exploit that kind of right back gap that they've created with the right back and Xhaka as well, in that kind of hole. And I think I don't really know if it's worth, because you're basically just targeting Game Week 3 and 4, and I think maybe you can transfer Mahrez though. I feel like he's still going to be rotation prone, which is what I'm worried about. Whereas Greenwood, not so much at this point in time. When will Veltman be available? Game Week 4. Benrahma's a must. I wouldn't say he's a must, but I have him in my team. So Dean, I would probably... I mean, I think Dean could actually hold versus Brighton, but I really don't like the way that he's not attacking as much as I expected, which is why I'm not interested in Dean anymore. Son versus Salah. I think for Game Week 3, it's a nicer fixture for Son for sure, but long term, it's obviously Salah. So it really depends on whether you have the capacity to do a 2-week punt almost on Son if you really want to drop Salah. Because also remember that Liverpool's Game Week 4 fixture is versus Leeds, which is a very, very nice fixture for Salah. -4 for Ings and DCL. I don't think it's worth it because I think Ings and DCL could have very similar weeks next week. I just wouldn't spend the money on that, basically. Sarr to Benrahma, 0.5 mil in the bank. Sarr to Benrahma. I do like that transfer for sure. Should you keep Shaw or Dean? I would keep Shaw because, as someone mentioned as well, Shaw has been getting bonus points, which means that he clearly is attacking and providing the chances. And I think Everton's defensive issues are a bit more glaring on an individual basis as well. You won't be able to get DCL in the next week if he's 8.2. Is -4. I think it's not a really bad move. Obviously, price rises, people equate like a 0.1 price rise to also long term be worth, I think, 2 to 4 points. So yeah, I mean, if you have to move Ings now, then go for it. Who to captain for Game Week 3? I like Son and I like Antonio as well. I think I'm probably going with Antonio with the team that I have in place. Is Sarr a good option if I don't have enough money for a 7.5 and already have Raf and Benrahma? I don't really think so. I think there's better money with that kind of 6.0 to be spent in let's say, a City defender or a Chelsea defender, in my opinion. So that's how I feel about that. Game Week 7 onwards, I think Rudiger and Lukaku should be nailed. Not even Rudiger. I think maybe if we see that Reece James continues to start, I think Reece James could really be nailed. Swapping Shaw to Reguilon to free up funds for Tony to DCL swap. I think that makes a lot of sense. I know swapping Shaw might be a bit of heresy for some people, but ultimately Tony doesn't seem to be the threat that we expected, and DCL on the other hand is very interesting. Shaw or Dyer in Game Week 3 starting 11? Oh, that's a tough one. I think Shaw's the riskier option and Dyer's the safer option. I feel like obviously Tottenham's kind of clean sheet odds are going to be super high. My slight concern is there might be a situation where, well, I don't think he's really done it too much this season, but actually, I think he has actually. One of the issues is that I feel Romero and Sanchez could be the two starting players for Tottenham, and then maybe he subs in Dyer if the game is secured. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a slight risk with Dyer there. Maybe Shaw's the better option. Thank you so much for these videos. Awesome, Clem. Thank you very much for joining us today. Oops, I think I've missed a few shots. Will Kane start next game week? I think so, based on the fact that he got minutes and it seems like he's ready to play. I've done Cancelo to Soufal. Very interesting option. What are you going to spend that money on? Who do you think I should take Dean out for? I like Soufal and I like Reguilon as well. I know you have Soufal, so maybe Reguilon's an interesting option. You can also maybe look at Reece James as well. Obviously a tough fixture versus Liverpool, so that's more of a long-term thing. If you want to kind of remove Dean now, by the way, Mario, I think you should keep Shaw over Dean for sure. In terms of transferring Dean, I think you could maybe even look to go for a 4.5 starting defender in the team. Wolves have very nice fixtures if you're ready to stick with that. That guy, you're gonna keep your stronger ear here. Thank you. I guess you're a United fan. Shaw or Dyer in Game Week 3. I think I've responded to that, Procurn. So hopefully you got the response. I would probably go Shaw. Is it worth doubling up on Leeds' attack with Rafinha or Bamford? I think not right now, but after Game Week 4, it makes a lot of sense to me. Is it worth swapping Shaw to Reguilon to free up funds for a Tony to DCL? Let's see. Is it worth swapping Shaw to Reguilon? I think it makes sense, yes. Angel and Soul, that makes sense. As a United fan, I think after Game Week 3, Green was very rotation prone. As Ole will probably play McFred in the midfield and Pogba in left wing. So Sancho will be right wing, and with Cavani back, he will go up front. I still feel like there's chances for Greenwood to play centre forward, in my opinion, but I agree he will be rotation prone at one point in the season. I just feel like his performances have been somewhat better than Sancho at this point in time. It's a tricky kind of situation, in my opinion, though. Should you make funds available for Robertson? I don't think so, not right now. The fixtures for Liverpool aren't so lovely, basically, as at the start of the season. You drop Salah and Ings for Pogba and Lukaku. Okay, that's very kind of interesting with going for Pogba there. But I like your faith and also your ambition. You already have Son and Bruno plus 1.3 in the middle in the bank. Honestly, good luck with that. That's very interesting. I wouldn't have gone for that price myself, but I'd be interested to see what happens with that. Thanks for the advice. I'll swap Shaw and Tony. Great. What does DCL mean? DCL means Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Rohit says, hi Frank, I have Barnes my team and I'm tempted to keep him for Norwich. Yeah, I think you should keep him for Norwich, but then I do really think he's rotation prone right now, because I feel like he's been very poor, and I think Brendan Rodgers does plan to move him. Would you start Diaz if you had him? Yeah, versus Arsenal, 100% I would start Diaz. Dallas plus Soufal for Benrahma plus Livramento. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Cardslicks, that's a very nice transfer that you've suggested there, in my opinion. Reguilon plus Soufal / Cresswell plus Dyer. I like Reguilon and Soufal a bit more than that. So yeah, go with that. Yes, United fan, you talking tax about United is what brought me here. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, United, I think, it's so odd that, they're still so heavily reliant in terms of the midfield and playing Matic, and I think at some point in time, there needs to be, or there really should have been already a succession plan towards him. I don't think he had an exceptional game, versus Southampton, but over the last 2 years, it's been evident that he's been a core asset to the team, and it's weird that there hasn't been any movements in that front. Are you not worried about DCL price rise? Not really, because I still have money in the bank, and what I'm planning to do. Someone asked me what I should do with Tsimikas. I'm probably going to save the 0.5 to capture any price rises, especially with DCL next week. I just think Ings has a nice fixture myself, and I feel like obviously I clearly have to adjust either Tsimikas or Omobamidele, which probably means that I will move Livramento into the team. That's how I feel. Starting Trent versus Chelsea, I will. Yeah, I think Trent versus Chelsea is very reasonable. basically picked Trent with the idea of him having a set and forget season for me. Sancho's a 75 mil player. I think he's undroppable. I agree, but you can see also Ole is taking some time to kind of situate him with the team. I also think Cavani is not a 75 million player, so he doesn't. It doesn't mean that Cavani has to start every game, you know. Thoughts on Ings to DCL? I think you can wait for the next week if you have money in the bank. I don't think that Brighton fixture is some sort of gold mine for DCL, you know. So that's how I feel about that. But if you want to capture a price rise and you want to start building value, then fair enough, go for DCL. You think that Son is going to play? You think that Son is going to play? I do think Son is going to play. Someone said that he was in full training today. Should you go -4 and bring in Diaz or Benrahma? I kind of like Benrahma right now. The fixtures are just a bit nicer, and I think Diaz, you know, at 6.0, you really want a set and forget defender. And obviously, the next 3 game weeks are quite nice for Diaz that as I recognized previously. But I still like the attacking potential from Benrahma. Still, I just kind of rather cheap price. What's my plans for Tsimikas? So I've explained that already. I kind of like Livramento right now. The only reason why I'm not going for Duffy is because I feel like he might be rotation prone in 3 to 4 game weeks. And at the same time, I just feel like Livramento has really kind of excited me in real life, just watching him play. And I feel like he can really easily move into right wing even as soon as next week. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how I feel about that. And I also think at least I have the opportunity to have Livramento versus Southampton. Versus Newcastle, sorry. City has great fixture. Should you get Jesus? That could be very interesting, but, you know, you might have to be playing Pep Roulette in 2 weeks' time. We need a DM since Carrick retired. Fair. That's completely true. I do think Matic has played a serviceable role for the team. So it was a good transfer to get, but obviously the expectation, of course, is that you would improve, you know, as United. Raya or Sanchez. I still like Sanchez for now. Barnes plus Ben White for Demarai Gray plus Sanchez. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. Do you have to go Demarai Gray? Can you not go for a 6.0 player potentially as well? But Demarai Gray is quite a nice one actually. When you're going to transfer Son out? Probably after game week 4. Keeper for 4.0. Thoughts on -4. Hit Bruno Mope out. Kane Fornals in. I'm not sure about bringing Fornals in, honestly. I would not take a -4 to take Bruno and Mope out just to get Kane, like, because I think Fornals is a huge engine for the West Ham side, but I don't think he gets that many fantasy points on a weekly basis compared to someone like Benrahma. Cornet, he is left back and Burnley paid him 50 mil. Yeah, but I feel like, you know, getting Burnley defenders, like, they just simply don't play a very attacking role, so it just feels like it's not value for money anyways. You can get wing backs, like for example Marçal at 4.5 mil for Wolves has a wonderful run of fixtures, and then also is just 4.5 mil, you know, quite an interesting option. I'll check DM. Yeah, you're not loving the content, thank you so much. Slightly bigger defensive hole. Yeah, I completely get it with Beltman right there. Tsimikas. I'm not massively in love with the 4.5/5 options with Tanganga and Regular. I'm probably the best. But I'm looking to try and get out of the 4 at the back at the moment. So do you think a 4.1 defender would be a better move? I mean, I think you could go for Duffy or Livramento. If you want to play 3 at the back, definitely. I would probably get Livramento if you want to move into a 3 at the back for sure. What are you thinking? You're on my stream. How many free transfers do you have, Benjamin? Honestly, this team is super strong. I'm not even sure what I would really do to it. I think this is lovely for the next game week. Very, very good team. I wouldn't change anything about this team right now, honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a succession plan to Ings, basically, which is probably going to be Bamford, right? If we stay within the structure. So yeah, I think this is a really lovely team. Really nice team. You were a teenage Brit popper. Okay. All right, so starting with Bissouma is a bit of a tricky thing. You're thinking about moving Mahrez or on for Benrahma, but a little hesitant. Fair enough. So I think if you want to do Mahrez to Benrahma, it's best to do it now. I agree with that because you would be getting the flexibility to hopefully push Bissouma up to another player. The bench, of course, is quite nice with Livramento, so I think you're kind of okay in that situation there. It's about maybe like changing Mahrez and Bissouma to two more stable options, I would say. Rafinha and Benrahma are nice options. You're searching out Ings, yeah, perfect, Benjamin. I mean, but as I was saying, nothing. I think it's very clear what you have to do, and you're pretty aware of that too. My opinion on Lukaku, I am doing Livramento after all, guys, or JM rather. Um, I'm just kind of holding my transfer just for injury news. The only reason why I've gone to Reguilon first is just for the just to capture the price rise. Yeah, Matic doesn't have the legs anymore. Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly why he doesn't play, full on matches. But it's for me, it was just so strange to see that Van de Beek was a transfer first before a DM. Grealish seems to have good underlying stats. I agree with him. I have actually spoken about Grealish quite a lot. He does seem kind of nailed. I mean, I actually have Grealish as a top option in terms of my cheat sheet. So I'm going to whip out the cheat sheet now. So I've always had, I mean, since game week 1, since I watched Grealish in the structure, I've been very interested in Grealish. So he still kind of rates quite highly for me. Slightly higher than Mahrez, to be honest, just given the price gap there. So I do like Grealish in general. It's just more the case that I think you can get much more value in terms of those kind of like 7.5, 6.5, even 6.0 players this season, as we've seen so far. And then I do think there's a bit of a difference when Son has good fixtures. So I'm kind of gambling on Son, which is the only reason why I don't have Grealish in my team. But I can also imagine flexibly maybe moving to, let's say, Grealish Rafinha as well. When I move away from Son. When do you think Castan will be a transfer in option again? I think honestly, I would be more interested to know when James Justin would be playing football, and then I would actually care about Leicester defense. Mahrez captain. If you're feeling that type of persuasion, you like the roulette, then fair enough. I think Jesus is good, Sai, but then I think it could be rotation prone within 2 fixtures time. So he's definitely probably going to start the next week. The question, of course, is with him getting less goals, playing at right wing, is he still such a fantastic option? And I think it still can be the case, but that's up to you. Greenwood or Antonio? I like Antonio more, to be honest. Less rotation prone, obviously less injury prone on Greenwood's behalf, but that's the toss up right now. I think you say that Antonio's fit right now and he's ready to play, and you hope that stays the same. Are you considering home and away big issue? I don't really think that home and away is that huge of an issue, in my opinion. In years past, people didn't pay as much attention to home and away as I think they did last season in terms of looking at the opposite direction. I think everyone said, "Oh, okay, home and away didn't matter last year," but I think when you also even look at Champions League fixtures over the last few years, which is probably the situation where there's the most glaring amount of changes between home and away, and how important that is. It really hasn't changed too much, other than the fact that there's an away goal rule. And then when you actually look at Premier League football, I think the statistics have actually shown that home and away is not as significant advantage as people actually think. Thoughts on using free transfer this week? I think it makes sense, especially with the Premier League statement coming out recently that really helps us. Thank you, Sai. Is it really yeah, I think someone said that Son was training today, but you can try to double check that and fact check that as well, because I haven't confirmed that myself. Just discovered this channel today. Thank you very much. Hopefully you'll be able to win your mini league now. Awesome. Should you make Antonio triple captain? I'm not 100% sure about that. I think, as triple captains are on a single game week, it's always a big gamble. But if you're really confident in Antonio, then fair enough. I do think Crystal Palace have clearly been one of the weaker sides. Let's quickly have a look at statistics over the first 2 game weeks, and let's just look at expected goals allowed, right? So you can actually see that Crystal Palace have actually one of the lowest expected goals allowed, which actually means that their defense has been very solid on an underlying stat basis. And I think the only reason really why they conceded, so heavily versus Chelsea was because it was Chelsea. And that's a very tough top side. I'm not saying West Ham are not a good attacking team. They certainly are, and that's why I have 2 West Ham players in my team. But that is the slight worry in that situation. You could also argue that the reason why it's quite low is because Brentford actually really built very, very few chances versus themselves. But I do think Crystal Palace is still looking like they're going to have a good defensive season. I know even though Vieira has come in, I think that's the interesting part. You're struggling to get Tony out of your team. I kind of need to know how many transfers you have, though. Do you have two transfers or do you have one transfer? Really unfortunate development situation as well there, but at least you have a starting three at the back there. I think the only way you can really get Tony out of your team, honestly, for the foreseeable future, is probably having to drop, one of Son, Fernandez, and Salah. That's pretty much what the team necessitates. That's the tricky situation, and I feel like you've definitely probably gone for Son so that he can attack Watford, which is the kind of main point of concern. And then for me, I think the way you've structured your team. I mean, I had a similar issue where I thought about that, and that's why I didn't go for Tony ultimately, because I knew that it would be tricky to get out of him. But I feel like what you can do is probably try to make sure that you have a stronger bench for now, and try to live with the fact that you have Tony. I think that's actually the only solution I can think of right now, because I don't really see a clear reason to drop Fernandez or Salah, and those are the only two players that you can really drop to get out of Tony, for it to be worthwhile, if you know what I'm trying to say. So I would rather maybe shore up your bench, because you probably just want to replace Simicast for now, and then maybe hold on to a double transfer if, let's say if Son doesn't impress us the next week, you can clearly get out Son in the next week, and then you can get out Tony then. I would probably say live one more week with Tony, maybe look to try to trade and profit off of Simicast for now. That's probably how I would kind of play, because I think the core of your team is very strong, right? You can even change out of Ailing if you don't like Ailing as well. But that's up to you, because I think Leeds have been looking like a pretty poor defensive side so far. But that's I think the situation that you're in, and it's not a bad situation because you have a very strong game week, even without Tony. So that's how I feel. Luke's any changes you'd make? Fernandez at captain, Tanganga, very interesting. So you've already made that transfer, very nice. Any changes I'd make? I think like a lot of people are saying here, it's about finding a way out of Tony, and about finding a way out of Barnes. Remember that Barnes could really drop in price tonight. So if we go to the last here, is Barnes set for a price drop? Yep, Barnes is seemingly set for a price drop. So I think what you'll need to look at is dealing with the Barnes price drop. Also, if anyone has Sancho right now in their team, or Jimenez, both of these players are probably set for a price drop. So I would watch out for that kind of situation there. Even Bowen as well. So a little bit of a tricky situation there for you guys, but do keep in mind that is the case right now. Even Iheanacho as well for some players. I think Barnes to Benrahma could be quite reasonable for now. If you don't want to lose value, that's really up to you. Like some people are more into building value, and some people are more into building points at the start of the season, and obviously that's the kind of decision you have to make. Callum Flynn, sorry, my bad. Gosh. Ailing, nice. Regular, nice. What changes should I make, and who should I bring / sub on? I would actually. Would you play Reece James versus Liverpool? I think it could be worth the punt to have Reece James versus Liverpool, but that's really up to you. I think I would start with the same team, to be honest, next week. Vice captain Benrahma is very interesting. One of the first no Salah, no Fernandez teams right now. I think honestly I would probably stick with the same team. Maybe play James if you'd like, but otherwise I'd keep it the same. In terms of like long-term transfers, I think we're probably talking about maybe switching one of Pogba or Greenwood, because I think you've already kind of made the profit on Pogba likely, and maybe you can move out of him if it seems like he's not going to have as effective a season as we imagine. Because I think he's gone on to like a red hot start in terms of price rises. So I think it's up to you whether you want to capitalize on that, because I think there's an opportunity there for you. But I can completely understand as well you wanting to stick with that team. I feel like the team is good to go, to be honest, even in game week 4, thinking about those fixtures. Lukaku would definitely have an improved fixture himself. In that situation, I'd probably say maybe watch out for Son, because I feel like Son, as some people mentioned, Tottenham have been quite defensive, but we'll see whether Kane comes back on, because at some points in the game, I think Son playing at centre forward has really been shut out of chances, like versus Wolves, as an example. Hit a very, very underperforming or underwhelming game rather. That guy. Oh yeah, I think we've already responded to that. So, ooh, awesome. Okay, Nice job getting Ben Rama in. What is this? Sweet. Mope. I think he seems to be recovering from the shoulder injury, but obviously watch out for the news there. I'd probably try to move out of Dean, and then I'd also think about ways to get out of Ings. So that would probably be my plan. I don't think there's anything really wrong with this team. It's more about maybe I mean, I don't know. Some people are still a fan of keeping Dean in their team, and that's totally fine. But I've been unimpressed, and I wanted to move on. Clearly, Target is probably the biggest point of concern here. I think you want to move Target on. If you have the excess kind of money to move him to a 5.0 player, then definitely go ahead and do so. That would be my kind of main point of concern. Obviously, Tierney is there too with an injury potentially. Tricky situation, but I'd probably move either one of Target or Tierney for now. Adam, white out today for Reguilon, or save for next week and get Tony out. I think the next week you probably have to get Ings out, right? So that's probably what you have to decide between. What do you think the priority is, White or Tony now? Because Ings will probably have to be your transfer for the next week. So I would probably ask that question back to yourself, because for me, I think that there's probably going to be a depth issue for you, but at least you have Brownhill probably playing. The question is, who do you think will haul more? Reguilon or Tony, and getting Tony out of your team right now is a bit hard given the fact that there aren't like a plentiful amount of forwards right now. So I'm probably thinking maybe Reguilon in, and then just move out of Ings for the next week. I'm just going to quickly go back to the YouTube chat for now. Adam Armstrong opinions. I don't really like Adam Armstrong. I think Southampton aren't building enough chances themselves. I think if you watch the Everton game, he was lucky to get that goal. And then in the second game, I think, versus United, he was actually given some chances to score, and I haven't been interested in him. Honestly, I thought he really should have scored one opportunity. I do think he's very hungry, and I like his directness in terms of how eager he is to take his opportunities. But I also think Southampton overall don't seem to be the strongest side. And then also, Che Adams is also going to share in part of the returns. And at 6.0, that kind of price, we have midfielders who are close to that range who are definitely performing better and more talismanic. French league fans are wild. England fans are civil compared to them. Can't locate the accent, Patrick. I come from Hong Kong, so I was based and studied it in an international school, so that's probably why you can't place my accent. I can't really tell you that people from Hong Kong sound the same as me, so probably quite a unique one. How fast the price of Tsimikas will fall? I don't think it'll fall that fast. Do you think Lukaku is worth keeping considering the next few fixtures? I mean, if you already have him in your team, I mean, you have to kind of keep him, right? I would have thought that you probably wouldn't have gone Lukaku because of those fixtures. But if you have him in your team, then that must suggest that you probably believe the fact that he's kind of fixture-proof, right? You transferred Tony and Dean for Cavalier and Duffy. You lost 8. Fair enough. But I think hopefully, in terms of price rises and value over term, that will kind of improve for you. Can we see your team? Yeah, definitely you can see my team. This is probably going to be my team at the end of the game week, guys, just to let you know. Hey mate, want to fit Trent in instead of Cresswell, have 0.5 in bank, and want to keep forwards and other defenders, so would need to downgrade a midfield by 1.5 to make the swap. What change do you think you'd make? I think you can probably transfer out Son. I know it sounds crazy, but the thing is Salah already has 12, is already 12.6, So getting back into Salah is harder than getting back into Son as per now. And then also, Son ultimately is going to have 2 fixtures. So I think your hope would be that Son kind of blanks versus Watford, which would obviously be very beneficial to me. But I think that's your clearest way of getting to Trent. I do think that Cresswell has really nice fixtures, though. So that's what I would say right now. And obviously, Trent has a tough fixture, in my opinion, versus Chelsea. So the way your team is set, I probably wouldn't make that transfer now. I would probably look in a week's time and reassess that, basically. Because Son could have a poor game week, and that could be a good opportunity to go back into Trent, if that makes sense to you. Should I transfer Simicast out now to get the 0.5, 0.1 profit or hold two transfers to international break? I think based on the recent Premier League statement, you probably don't need to hold two transfers. You can probably profit now, but that's up to you. Like, do you have any kind of plans to apply the 0.1 profit over, or are you holding on to a player for a specific reason? I'm also going to keep my screen on my team just in case people want to have a look at it. Thoughts on Amarte? I really don't think Leicester are playing very well right now, and I think he's basically he's always right now at least one game week away from getting replaced by Vestergaard is how I see it. Dean to Reece and Barnes. Gray left with 1.5 mil. I actually really like that kind of transfer strategy, Kushagra. That makes sense. Rochelle says Gundo / Simicast out for regular and Benrahma this game week. I have 2 free transfers. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Mahrez to Son I think also makes sense, guys. Ultimately when you go for Mahrez, you know you're dealing with Pep Roulette. That's basically the decision you have to make. Schmeichel, Shaw, Dean Reguilon, Gray, Benrahma, Greenwood, bench Raya, Livramento, Pinnock, Dennis. What do you think? I have no free transfers. I mean, I think you play the exact team that you mentioned, and I don't think you go -4. Like, we can reassess next week if something went glaringly wrong. But that's how I feel right now. Thoughts on transferring Salah out? It's tough because he's 12.6 right now. And I feel like the Sun 1 week punt seems to be the usual strategy for some people moving out of Salah. But I think with the international news and the Premier League statement, there's no reason to really do that. You're on it on Twitter now. All right, yeah. Thoughts on this free hit team, and do I put Vardy or Mahrez in? Ooh, interesting. So we're attacking Arsenal very heavily. Lloris as well. Okay. I'm not sure about Pereira. Are you starting with Pereira in this free hit? I know it's Norwich. That's a tough one. Are we really saying that Norwich is going to blank 3 game weeks in a row? I just feel like just the one point of concern is that Leicester have been playing so poorly, which is why I'm a bit worried about that. But otherwise, I think the team makes a lot of sense. I would probably say Cancelo's an interesting one as well. I think Laporte was also quoted to have would definitely start. So if you feel like 0.5 can be better spent in a different location, then maybe you can kind of look at Laporte as well. Use 2 of my transfers for Livramento and Benrahma. Think of getting Bamford for Ings for game week 4 and eventually swap him out for Lukaku by downgrading Son when Chelsea's matches get better. Yeah, I think that's the general strategy that I have as well, to be honest. Getting into Lukaku. I'm not in the same kind of board in terms of Bamford. I might be going DCL instead, personally. And then I think also, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where I stand right now. But I think the team makes sense. I'd probably also say that maybe your bench is at a bit of a weak state right now, but that's also largely due to Veltman's kind of situation. So I guess the hope is you can squeeze by this week, and I think you'd be in a good spot to kind of make the Lukaku transfer, as you mentioned. Any update on Son injury? I think he seemed to be practicing fine, but please double check that for me and have a look at if he was training today. How do you get rid of Tony? One way is DCL to Ings and Simicast to Livramento. You have 1 mil in the bank as well. I think it would probably be, moving kind of Greenwood around if you want to reduce Tony. You also have 2 strikers, so you could simply just kind of reduce Tony to a 4.5 and maybe upgrade someone else. Like, you have the opportunity, to arguably upgrade another defender and have a very solid player, because basically you've kind of benefited from the situation where Simicast has been doing extremely well as a 4.0. But I don't think you want to be starting Ayling or White, on a week-to-week basis. So one of these players in terms of Ayling or White, probably White right now, given the fact that he might price drop, could be changed for someone who's a better defender, and then you can kind of play a 4 back sometimes as well. I know some people don't like playing a 4 back. So of course there's also the opportunity to move into a 6.5 midfielder as well for a double transfer. Probably just going to someone like Rafinha, I think makes more sense than Tony. So I kind of like that. And then you kind of you have to address Ings in the next week, but we'll probably have to think about that as well. I think changing formation is the most reasonable one right now, as far as I can tell, because basically I don't really like any of the forwards too much outside of Mope, who still is a risk for me around the 6.5 forward category or even lower. Two transfers, deciding between Salah Simicast for Reguilon and Son, Salah and Brownhill for Son and Benrahma. I like the cash pick as well, by the way. Nice job picking him up. I do quite like I do quite like Son and Benrahma, but I'm also worried that Salah will haul. That's one point of concern I have. I think obviously the most interesting option for you is probably to replace Simicas so that you can have a stronger defensive bench, because basically what I'm looking at right now is Obafemi's not playing, Hover's not playing, Simicas is not playing. That's a completely like not playing bench, right? So we probably do need to address the Simicas situation, even though I actually do prefer getting Son and Benrahma. So that's how I feel about that. What do I think of Sarr? I think he plays for quite a weak team, and even though he's a very strong player and can destroy most left backs in the league, I feel like the level of quality in the Watford team is going to struggle with overall the depth in the Premier League. Simicast to Duffy, I guess, not much else to do. Yeah, I mean, the other option is Livramento, to be honest, as well. So that's really up to you. I'm probably going Livramento. I'm going to play it a bit more riskier, I think. And then I might maybe take a hit in the subsequent week to see how I might move out of Ings, but that's sort of how I feel about that. I like the transfers you're suggesting. Do we have a deep enough bench to support that? Mope for Obafemi. So that obviously means that we have 2 strikers. We still have 4 midfielders. So we would need 4 defenders. I still feel... I don't think you can really get out of Mope right now, right? Due to that. Because Ben White, do you think he would be continue to be sick? And I think Amarty might not be playing as well in terms of defense. I guess Brownhill can come in, as an emergency kind of thing. But I guess my question to you would be, what do you think about the defensive situation overall? Because let's say we change Simicast for Reguilon. Right now, we'd still be missing out on Mope, right? If Obafemi comes in. So you definitely have to play like a bench player. So I think you probably have to strengthen your bench twice if you want to stick with that structure. I transferred in Duffy, Calvert-Lewin, and Benrahma for Dean. Let's just quickly just go to chat for a second. Thoughts on Amarty? I think general with Amarty, the issue is that Vestergaard will just displace him very quickly, and Leicester are very poor. Should you downgrade Havertz for Benrahma this week before Liverpool? I think you can definitely do that. I think Havertz is playing clearly like a second striker role, and I think Lukaku is the focal point, which means that Havertz isn't really worth at his 8.5 price. I mean, even Grealish at 8.0 is a good downgrade as well, if you want to stay within that kind of structure. What's my take on Dean? I really wanted Dean to attack a lot more, but I think at times it seems like, Benitez is happy to kind of defend in a much more deep and kind of compact and rigid manner. And for that reason, Dean is probably not going to attack as much as we wanted. And I think even though I could have egg on my face with Dean probably playing the next week, I just don't like Dean compared to some of the other 4.0, 4.5, or even 5.0 options. Should you do Mane and Simicast, Son and Reguilon, or Son and Ayling? I like Son and Reguilon a lot more. Livramento or Duffy? I have Sanchez as goalie. I'm going Livramento personally, but I think it is a bit riskier. It is a long-term enabler as well, so my plan is to eventually move out of the 4-4-2 formation. I just think that there's a nice little game week where I can kind of target, let's say, Southampton versus Newcastle with Livramento, and probably play off of that. Who should I swap for Matt Target? I think we're probably talking about Reguilon or Sufal as the most interesting options for a direct kind of swap. I know Matt Target has dropped from 4.9, so if you're only able to look at 4.5 players, then we're probably talking about Tanganga, a Brentford defender, or a Wolves defender. Didn't PL ban travel for players to red zone? That's correct, Nicholas. Yeah, that's correct. Goat, should I do Mane and Civicas? Sorry, I've responded to that. I have Antonio and Rafinha, says Faryaz, who will play the international games. Oh, right, okay, so that's, yes, that's why you're replying, Nicholas. Yeah, I think have a look at the Premier League statement. It does seem to be the case that you don't have to worry about the international situation. I want to add Ben Rama to my team, and to do so, I need to change Tony for a 5 million striker. Do you think I should do it? I think a lot of people have been asking that question, and I think yes, if you have 2 free transfers, then it is worth it. You've messaged me on Instagram. I can have a look at that, but I'm not going to show my Instagram DMs. I'll just respond to you openly. So I'm going to quickly just check the Instagram message. So I think Amir asked the question, any transfers I'd recommend? No, I actually think your team is quite fixture proof. It would probably be just trying to find a way out of Tony, depending on how many transfers you have. Because I think obviously, Bissouma is a fantastic bench option right now. Really kind of sad that I don't have him as a 4.5, but clearly it's just kind of moving out of Tony and then moving out of Ings in the next week. In terms of Canyo, I hope that I've pronounced that correctly. He's got 0.5 in the bank and no free transfer. You want Reguilon for slash Tanganga for white. Not sure about Simicast playing this weekend. Is it worth taking the -4? I hope you mean that one I hope that the -4 is the second transfer. But if it is the first transfer, I think it might be worth it because it is very likely, in my opinion, that Robertson will play. But what you can also do is wait for the Liverpool kind of injury news and also for Klopp's press conference as well to make sure that you're, I guess, like double checking whether Simicast plays, if you know what I mean. But that's how I feel about that right now. Havertz out. Yeah, I think Havertz out is probably a good direction in general. Dunk, SMR, Bissouma. What do you mean by that? Sorry, I think I've lost a bit of track. But I think your team is fine as it is, to be honest. The one that you suggested above. Should I downgrade Havertz for Benrahma this week? Yep, I think so. You don't. Yeah, I don't think Simicast will play personally. I think Robertson does seem fit on time. I think I've already expressed my opinion on Dean, so I think also Amarty is not so likely to play. But once again, listen out for the Brendan Rodgers press conference near the end of the week and see what happens with that situation. Is 110k in the world good? Absolutely, it's a great start. I mean, you're still within the top 2% of players, so it's a fantastic start to the season so far. Is Son injured, or should I transfer him out for Greenwood? Have some money in the bank. Currently sitting 600 overall. Wow, 600 overall. Fantastic. I think Son is not necessarily... I don't think Son is actually injured. I think someone said he was training, but we'll have to double check that. In fact, let's just check that right now. Right, that's a player who's not playing for sure. And Dombele. Should we look at the midfielders? Okay. Okay, it says Heung-min Son was at training, but let's actually see if he was physically with the ball at his feet. That would be kind of a key one. I can't believe I actually have to look at every photo. I feel like I'm getting clickbaited. Painful stuff. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like I can see Son in this photo here. So I think it might take some time for us to assess the situation. I still haven't seen Son in training boots. So that is one point of concern. Still no Son. Okay, that's Son running. Running in trainers as well. Okay. Maybe Son just needs to recover some fitness, guys. But great scouting mission from us there. Is DCL worth putting in? DCL is actually set for a price rise tonight, so if you want to go for DCL early, I think now's the chance if you don't have the budget flexibility. Barnes keeps on disappointing. He will fall in price too in a few hours. I hope he can get me some points this weekend. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, absolutely get rid if you can't get you points this weekend. Who's the best defender I should have until game week 7? I think a Wolves defender is actually, I wouldn't say the best defender, but a very good value defender. Because let's have a look at Wolves' fixtures list, right? So let's have a look at someone like Marcel from Wolves. Look at how good the fixtures are after Man United. Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle. So I think, yeah, a Wolves defender is an interesting option to kind of keep your eyes open to. You already start Mbemo on your team. Should I keep him replaced? I think you can. Look, I think this is the last week where we can have a test for the Brentford attackers, absolute last week. If they don't impress us, then we probably do have to move away from them. Look at Spurs Twitter. They sent a pick. Awesome, yeah. So I think Son is definitely training. You're also struggling on whether to keep Barnes. I wasn't really a huge fan of Barnes to start the season with, so I didn't really start him because I thought he was rotation prone, whereas I preferred Benrahma. But I think if you already have Benrahma, then maybe just keep him for Norwich, because ultimately it's a nice fixture for Leicester. But I think, the better play is probably to sell him for Rafinha, to be honest, as long as you don't take a -4. Martinez out for Leno game week 4. I mean, I know the Arsenal schedule gears its head around, but honestly, at the current kind of state of Arsenal, I generally think they'll have tough games no matter who they play. So I can maybe see the sentiment to drop Martinez out if you really don't have any issues out with the rest of your team. I'm not, in general, a huge fan of transferring out keepers, but if you absolutely must, I would just say go for a different keeper, in my opinion. Even the Wolves keeper is a bit more interesting to me. I think Wolves are generally playing good football, and they've been unlucky to lose 0-1 both games. I'm going to quickly just look at some of my Twitter DMs for a second. Swapping out for Barnes, I think Rafinha makes a lot of sense. Benrahma makes a lot of sense. Should you keep Target versus Brentford? What is going on with his situation? I think the situation is clearly that he played a terrible game versus Sarr. He got abused in a sense, and Young was asked to fill in for the remainder of the second half, and then because of that game as well, he didn't get to start versus Watford, and I think we could still see Young continuing in that place. So I think Target could be following. So it probably just makes more sense to move out of Target anyways earlier, because his fixtures are terrible after Brentford anyways. Wolves have had 45 shots in the first 2 games. Exactly. Wolves have been a decent side. Just did my 2 transfers, Mahrez and Tony to Rafinha and DCL, which leaves me with 0.9 in the bank. Next week I'll probably do Tsimikas to Soufal. I think those are nice transfers. Although I do think Soufal could be a bit of a worry in terms of I think the fixtures aren't that nice after this week. Thank you, Cliff, as well, for the cheat sheet post on Twitter. Yep, we'll always be posting that on Twitter as well. And the full breakdown is always done on a YouTube video as well every week. Is Jimenez a good replacement for Ings in the next week? Yes, I think he is, but I think you can also keep your eyes open for Bamford and DCL. One thing I'll also say about Jimenez is I think he hasn't actually been creating a lot of opportunities. I know someone mentioned that Wolves had a lot of shots, but I actually think Traore has been the one with the largest shots. I think not too many chances have, to be honest, been in kind of Jimenez's direction. Rafinha or Greenwood? I think Rafinha just so you can kind of play around with the budget probably, and he's less rotation prone. In terms of, I think Greenwood's probably most effective in centre forward, but then it seems like Ole wants to play him right wing at times. And in that situation, then I think it makes more sense to Rafinha, right, who's a more consistent threat even when he is playing right wing. Marwan says, should I sell Barnes and get Benrahma this week or wait for the Norwich fixture? Norwich, I think it's tough. I know Norwich has been very poor, but I think Leicester don't really seem like a team that are creating a lot of goals. So that's my point of concern. I feel like you want to get out of Barnes before the price drop, because even if he hauls, you're still looking at a price drop and staring at that. Bamford versus DCL, once again, tough. I think DCL has the nicer game week 4, right? Because Bamford is playing Liverpool, but ultimately Bamford was the more consistent option last year. But DCL is now on penalties, so that's a huge kind of toss-up. And I think Everton are clearly playing in a way where all the kind of expected goals are going to come from DCL in a sense. Whereas I think with Bamford this season, I think he's seemingly kind of been, less involved in games, but it's still the early point of the year. I would say DCL is more interesting. Ali, try not to spam the chat, please. Ings or Antonio? I think Antonio is the better option. Faryaz says, when will I know if the players will play the international games? I think the Premier League made a statement, and I think the worst that will happen to the Premier League is that they'll take a fine, but I think the players won't play. Ali, I've responded to your question. Please try to stop spamming in chat, just so that everyone can get their questions in as well. Wolves defense, I would look at Marcel. Plays left wing back. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Marcel is very interesting. I've already mentioned him earlier in the episode, but I guess you've come in a bit later. So yeah, let's just respond to some Twitter. Trent to 4.5 def and Ings to Lukaku for post game week 6 move. Fantastic option in my opinion. I do generally agree with that, but obviously if something else happens later on and Trent seems to be more set and forget, then we can keep our eyes open. But also at the same time, it's hard to really plan for game week 7 when we're literally about to hit game week 3. Simicast to Livramento, 1.1 in the bank and 1 FT. I would want to move Ings to Lukaku or Perica to DCL, but I'd have to move Barnes to 4.5 today and take a minus hit. I do think dropping Barnes is somewhat worth it, just for the long-term health of your team, and the fact that you can kind of continue to build value. I know it's a bit aggressive, but I feel like that could be worth it. I'm just not sure if Lukaku is what you want to get out of that, though. That's what I'm trying to say. I like going to DCL now from Ings, but I'm not sure if you want to go into Lukaku for it, is what I'm trying to say. Livramento or Duffy for Simicas? I think given the fact that you have a very weak bench, you probably want to stick with Livramento because Duffy could be... Like, my issue is that with Amarty and Mankilo, the issue with those picks is that they're probably not going to play after Game Week 3. Mankilo already isn't playing, and Vestergaard will come in for Amarty. And the issue with Duffy is that he has more competition for his position. I know Livramento is literally competing with Kyle Walker-Peters, but I actually think that, ironically, Walcott and Kyle Walker-Peters are competing with Livramento, who's probably a starter in either of those two positions. DCL or Antonio for the next week? I would say Antonio for the next week. He's just in fantastic form, basically. Withers, Mr. Withers. 600 overall. Wow, well done. You have 2 free transfers. What should you do? Thinking Barama in and Son in and drop Ings. Thank you so much. Really glad you like the channel as well. Ooh. 2 free transfers. What do you think about that? Yeah, so I think obviously Suchet is the one to replace. I think my one worry with Son basically is that I think I did half expect Kane to play. So that is one concern. But I think the hope is that, with all expectations going normal, Kane will play and Son will have a great return. So I think, you do take a -4 for it, but is it worth it for the subsequent 2 game weeks? I think so, just because I think Benrahma will haul more than Suchet for sure, and he'll probably get you that value back. The question, of course, is does Greenwood do the same? Yeah, I think this is probably worth it. But then you also lose Ings. I think Son is probably less of a priority. I probably think you want to stick with 1 more week of Ings, because ultimately Son is just a 3 and 4 hit. I think with the kind of strong position you have right now, it's more about rounding out your team, because I think the core of your team is very strong, and I still think Greenwood has opportunities to do well in the future fixtures. And I think like wasting a transfer and especially a hit on him when he's still in good form and can contribute, just given the fact that United build so many chances, unless they're playing Southampton, basically, probably just means it's not worth taking the -4 hit. I think it would kind of tank your rank, like in a way where I would say it's probably not worth it. You have such a fantastic start. You have money in the bank as well. I would probably just go get Benrahma in the side, I would say, and probably try to stick with your team and be a bit more flexible, because maybe a Marty can be changed for someone else. And also you can adjust Ings in the next week, right? in the next week, where maybe you can once again change Ings, I think, because Ings still has a decent fixture. All you're really missing out on is, the advantage of Son versus Watford. But, are we really saying Son is going to have a crazy haul? It really depends on whether you think that you can captain Son and get lots of value from him. If you're not going to captain Son, then I think this is not worth it. I think Antonio can be a good captain, and you can do well with that. Mariella, so still 10 out of 10. I'd still say so. So this was your team last week. Very strong haul. No Ben Rama. So that I believe I told you that there was no Ben Rama last week. So I said that it was a 9.5, right? I think that's what I said. So that still remains true. In terms of Amartey, I think the issue is, 100% Amartey. So I think someone 5.5. I think you could probably kind of go down and maybe Reece James potentially, but the fixture isn't nice for Liverpool, so you wouldn't do that transfer now. And I'm thinking whether you want to. I feel like maybe if you push Amartey to, let's say, a 5.0, maybe you have the money to kind of upgrade Ings in the following week. I'm not sure how much money you have in the bank though, in particular. Awesome, yeah, because I think ultimately, it's just not worth losing out two players who have okay fixtures and are still in good form, just to get in Son and also take a hit, because ultimately it could kind of even out, and then you probably have to find a way out of Son eventually, after game week 4. So you've got 1.5 in the bank. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of the 5.0, and then maybe having a little bit more money to spare so you can kind of move out of Ings, if that makes sense, if DCL rises. So Rock says 1 free transfer, 0.5 in bank. Think of changing Havertz to Ben Rama. I do like going Havertz to Ben Rama. I think it makes a lot of sense. Townsend, of course, is a bit of a questionable pick, I would say. Obviously, a lot of Everton love, so I imagine you're an Everton fan. If we go Havertz to Ben Rama, what would be the play in the next week? I mean, you have obviously the opportunity, I imagine, to pick up. It's an interesting structure. No United players as well. So interesting. I do like Havertz to Ben Rama for the next 2 game weeks, but I think I'm just wondering whether there are more glaring issues for the team. I think Townsend has to be adjusted for sure. But I think I think that makes sense. I think you just look to the future and kind of try to adjust Townsend and maybe some of the other players if they're not hauling for you, especially Ings the next week. Is Ben Rama to Traore? No, I don't think you get out of Ben Rama in the next 2 weeks. Absolutely not. The thing is, you can't look at XG as a valuation of players all the time, because we clearly see that Traore has fantastic chances, but what does he do with them? He doesn't finish them. So that's pretty much what it comes down to, right? I don't. You're not picking someone for their XG threat. You're picking them so that they can get you fantasy points. And at the end of the day, XG is a good indicator to tell you how many chances a player has potentially. And we know Adama Traore creates great chances for himself, but he doesn't finish them. So I don't think like that factual kind of point on Traore is going to change. Whereas, Ben Rama has less XG clearly, but is more clinical and definitely a more creative player as well, in my opinion. Bar the fact that Adama Traore can run down the line and give a great cross from the right-hand side of the field. Who should I replace Tsimikas with? 0.5 in the banks, 4.6 to spend. Oh, great, okay. So what is our team structure here? We have the 3 striker, we have 4 midfielders, so clearly a 3-4-3. We have Trent, we have and with Trent and Shaw really who are just pegged, and then we have issues with Manquillo and Amartey and Tsimikas. I think you probably want to change Tsimikas into. I would say there's good opportunity to gamble into a Wolves defender and then kind of benefit from Wolves over the course of the future game weeks, because I think the issue with Tanganga is if you have Tanganga, he does have tough fixtures. Whereas with Wolves, you have one tough fixture and then like really, really good fixtures after that. So I would say a Wolves defender could slot in quite well in this team. You just would have to expect that his game week 3 won't be great. Is Rafinha a better choice or Greenwood? I think Rafinha is slightly better than Greenwood. I wouldn't transfer Greenwood out for him. Should you swap Tony for DCL and Barnes for Rafinha? Yes, I would do both of these transfers. I agree with that. Let's look at Mikal's team. Do I swap Zaha for Traore next week, or do I go with cover? I think like Zaha, like swapping Zaha into Traore is almost a trap for a trap, if that makes sense. I guess you're a Crystal Palace fan as well, so that IU pick is a little bit out of left field for me. I feel like you have money in the bank to kind of adjust some players like Ayu. I think Ayu is a worse pick than Zaha to try change, and I feel like Cavani could arguably be also a poor pick. So I would try to change um, Ayu and Cavani, so that you can kind of get into DCL. I don't know how many free transfers you have. I would probably drop Cavani for DCL, and I'd probably try to move the money that you have in Ayu back into the midfield right now. I'm just going to quickly go back to the stream chat for now. Let's have a look. Williams, I don't think Williams is an interesting defender. I feel like Norwich is a very poor team. I think they're more interesting 4.0 defenders. I think Livramento is a much more complete footballer than Brandon Williams. Much more better in an attacking sense as well, and even on a defensive sense. Yes, obviously Southampton, you could argue, are equally poor at defending, but I still think he will have good attacking hauls, which will kind of increase his value. And then I think with Duffy, you have access to a very strong defense in Brighton. So there's that, basically. Should you bring in Ben Rama and Livramento or Gray and Reguilon? I kind of like Ben Rama and Livramento. But obviously Livramento as a starter is a questionable decision. I'm planning to move out of Livramento personally. What to do, as I have Veltman, White, Amarte, and Def, and also Gundo / Ben Rama, 2 free transfers in the bank. Maybe Gundo to Rafinha. I like Gundo to Rafinha, but then I think you need to spend the other transfer on the bench. I'm probably going to close up the stream in around 10 minutes. I know I haven't had the opportunity to answer all your questions. I'm so sorry. There's been so much activity in the chat. I really apologize about that. I just think you guys have to watch Adamo play football, and he seems a good option just because of XG, but you have to say over the course of the 2-3 years, he just hasn't really scored enough goals. And he doesn't show that kind of clinical presence that I think you want in an FPL player. Advice, please. Barnes and Bowen have blank so far and about to lose value. Do I remove them with my free transfers? I definitely think so, because you can move into Ben Rama and Rafinha. These are more consistent and clear attacking options. I know Barnes could have a good return versus Norwich, but you want to start to, I would think, maintain your value at this point in the season, in my opinion, Steve. So it means the Premier League players won't play the international matches. Well, I think they won't play the international matches so long as those international matches are in red list countries. You could consider taking Salah out, but I think you'd have to look at the gamble. 5-minute long ad? I don't think you should be watching a 5-minute long ad. You can skip ads, Leafs. You can skip ads. There's no way you should be getting a 5-minute long ad. Could I consider taking Salah out? I mean, yeah, I think, sorry, just going back to the question, I think you definitely can. Do you think Cancelo, Robertson, and Watkins start? I really don't know. I think you have to wait for the press conferences, Todd, near the end of the week and see what the managers say about all these players individually. Cavani is back in training. Yes, he is. But I think also it takes time to get back into match fitness as well. Remember how long it took for some players. For example, Chilwell was in training and has been training for a long time, but still hasn't featured. Right. Okay. Do you think Bamford will price drop? Is he? I don't think he will. Is he close to a price drop? I'm really sorry, guys. I don't have the time to finish with all the message requests right now. I will try to respond to you guys individually in my own time, so don't worry about that. In terms of Bamford, let's actually just type his name. He's close to a price drop, but not right now. I think he's going to survive towards the next week. Is Dean worth it? I don't think so. I certainly wouldn't move into Dean. I would probably drop Barnes as well. I just so that you can kind of protect the value of your team right now. I think the thing with taking Salah out is that this week isn't a good week to bring Lukaku in. It is basically my point of view on that. I don't really like Dean. Bamford usually does well against Burnley, so if he doesn't drop now, I don't think he will. Exactly, I agree with James in general with that. With who to replace Barnes? Already have been around Greenwood. You don't fancy Rafinha because of the LFC fixture. But the issue is that you would be getting Rafinha for more of a long-term presence, right? It's, like even Barnes has tough fixtures, right? Barnes, I mean, Leicester have to play Man City eventually too. So like, it's not like Barnes is a clear good option, whereas Rafinha is more set and forget in my opinion, and I think Barnes could be rotated out. Is how I see things right now. My thoughts on Jimenez. I think actually Jimenez is an interesting option, but not so interesting right now. I think the chances Wolves have actually been created around him. I think other players have been creating chances. I think Traore has benefited a lot of chances. Wait, Traore to Tottenham news is crazy. Excuse me, sorry. Did I miss something? Am I going crazy? Is it? It's just a rumor right now, right? Okay, it's just a rumor. All right, I was just making sure. Should I take a -4 to get Tony out before he drops? I think it's worth it, to be honest. Who can you? What are you planning to do in terms of getting towards like getting out of Tony? In terms of I see. Okay, Mikhail. Yeah, I think you take your time with your forwards, Mikhail, and definitely probably try to change IU first, and then we can look towards the rest of the team. Because I think like when I look at just individual output, I know Zaha's like I just think Zaha will create a lot more chances than IU will, you know. So it's gonna take a little bit of time to get out of this team. But that's how I see things right now. I mean, the alternative as well is that you can literally just do a wild card because I think there are still a lot of changes you want to make, and it might be worth doing that if you believe that. But I know you've already used most of your transfers, so you probably don't want a wild card immediately. But I think there's definitely an opportunity there, given the fact that the team could struggle long term, because I think like Alonso could be rotation threat with Chilwell. Cody is actually a really nice pick. I like that. Son's a nice pick. Ben Rama's a nice pick. Grealish is a nice pick. Mount is actually quite a nice pick still. Lukaku's a nice pick. It's just Cavani and Ayew and Zaha arguably that are poor picks, like out and out. I'd say for now, even though Cavani's like back in training. And then I think well, it depends also how you feel about Pope as well. He's good value, but I think some of the general advice, especially for your next year in fantasy, because your first year is good to test, is that what I've learned at least is it's not really nice to rotate keepers around. It works sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't. And you usually want to kind of force as much of your value as possible into specific players. Because what I would say is that you have a very, very complete team. Like your bench is almost way too strong compared to a lot of your opponents. And that's why on a weekly basis, in terms of value, they'll probably get more out of you when we compare teams. But that's how things are right now. I'm just going to feel like you're covered with Ben Rama, with Sufal and Antonio. I mean, I don't agree with that, to be honest. Like you could make the same argument for Ben Rama versus in the first game, right? He didn't actually have that many chances, but ultimately Ben Rama is a 1 goal, 1 assist player per game, and you can't get that covered by Sufal, who is not very safe with the clean sheets. And even though I love Sufal in open play, he really should have had 2 assists so far. I don't think you can cover Ben Rama in that sense. I think Ben Rama is a clear priority over Sufal. Should I? Okay, Rafinha only 6.5, even if he misses a couple of games through international break. Exactly, yeah. I agree with that. Is it bad to have free players from West Ham? I don't think so. Just joined. What kind of team is that? I mean, it's a new players team, guys. It's very normal to not have a super strong team at the start of the season. Like a lot of us, of course, who have been doing research like for a long time. We're playing FPL. Like for me, at least, I'm still a relatively new FPL player, but I've been watching football a long time, and I kind of learned I made most of my mistakes in the last season, right? But I can completely understand why people make a strong team, and have a very deep bench when they're playing FPL for the first time. Because if you're not kind of looking at how FPL is played and the rules, and also theorizing about how it worked, I can understand why you've created that team, arguably. Especially if you're a Crystal Palace fan and you've gone for Zaha and Ayew. But other than that, yeah, I mean, let's not take it too seriously, because, an FPL career is quite a long one as well. They're playing, let's see. So should I transfer out Barnes? This is my team. Sanchez, TAA, Shaw, Smikas, Bruno, Salah, Rafinha, Tony Ings. I mean, you can go for Ben Rama, so I think definitely you can do that. You'll wait till Tony's 100% set to drop. Yeah, exactly. I mean, 46 is super far away from a drop. Antonio killing Sufal with those misses. Yeah, for sure. So you're sure I can move Barnes out to Rafinha out? Are you sure I won't I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost 95% sure. I mean, have a read of the Premier League statement, Faryaz, and think about that one. Guys, I'm wildcarding Greenwood or Grealish, pick one. I'm going to say Grealish if you're wildcarding. You're a Man United fan, Zaha fan on its own. I mean, Zaha's a fantastic player, honestly. He's been lighting up the league for a long time now. Barnes for Ben Rama. Yeah, I mean, anyone going for Ben Rama now is just trying to avoid the price drop. You have a weak bench of Veltman, Amarty, Brownhill. with 1 mil in the bank. I mean, you could probably upgrade Veltman, to be honest, if you want to upgrade your bench. Because clearly you need a third player alongside like who's going to replace Simicas, right? And Veltman isn't going to sit there. So I think just upgrade your defender to someone like Reguilon or someone like Soufal. Where can you find the Premier League statements? I think I actually created a YouTube video showing you the Premier League statement itself, so you can have a look at that. Yeah. Should you transfer out Barnes? I think so, yes. I think you have the capacity to clearly go into Benrahma. Tony's not dropping tonight, guys. Don't worry about that. So, bro, you was the guy telling me about Diaz captain. Honestly, well done, Alan. And I think someone told me that there was a Trent captaincy opportunity as well. And well played to you if you went for the Diaz captain. So I admit I was wrong. So I'm definitely going to take the L. But yeah, well done there. You already have Benrahma. You think you should drop Barnes to Rafinha and avoid the price drop, or stick with Barnes versus Norwich. Sorry. Reguilon over Soufal. Legend. Reguilon over Soufal because of price rise. Yes, I like that. Yeah, you can capture the price rise. You already have Benrahma. You think you should drop Barnes to Rafinha. I do think you can drop Barnes to Rafinha because it's more about the fact that I think Rafinha is like a set and forget type player, and you have value out of him over that point in time. DCL is almost certainly increasing tonight. By the way, anyone who's messaging me on Twitter, I will respond to you as soon as possible. I'm just trying to interact with the chat here right before I leave today. But yeah, DCL seems set for a price rise. So does Reguilon. So does Reece James. So does Lukaku. It's not 100% certain. So I would say maybe look out and wait and see. But these are the players you want to be looking at, ideally. And then in terms of players who you don't want to be looking at, or you want to get rid of, it's players like this at the bottom of this list. So the key players that we've seen so far, I think, would have been Soufal, would have been Havertz as well. So now is a nice time to get out of Havertz. Now is a nice time as well to get out of Cavani. Barnes as well, who's very close to a price drop potentially as well. So that's how things stand right now, guys. But yeah, I mean, that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to roll just an ad, I think, just before I go. But thank you so much for attending the stream. If you guys have any comments still, feel free to message me on social media platforms and I will respond to you. And so, yeah, take care, guys.